Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the Deep Space Nine Deep Dive with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Malissa Longo is here, feeling very dour.
Dour.
So, something that we haven't covered yet, Malissa Longo, and I know you're going to want to, is we haven't talked about Major Kira and her performance and her role in this episode and all the things that she did. We did talk a bit about the actors talking nonsense and how difficult that must be. Cirroc was talking about how there was an alien at the bar telling Quark to eat it. There are all kinds of things. But did you have any thoughts on the Major Kira storyline and the Bajorans?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. It was an interesting look at how Kira dives into things. She goes headfirst into everything. And she doesn't give up. She doesn't let up until, if she doesn't get the right answer, then she'll try another tactic. So, yeah. And I can see why some people may have had an aversion to her early on in the series, because she is pretty, she's pretty aggressive in much of the way that she approaches life in general. So, and that comes across, and I think that's wonderful that it shows where Kira starts to, and then where she, how she evolves in 7 years.
Something that we should have mentioned at the top of this episode, by the way, is that Cirroc, when we first did a review of this way back in 2019, in the end of May of 2019, I believe it was, with Aaron, you, myself, we had Armin Shimmerman as our guest, and we didn't, Malissa informs us, we didn't really actually talk much about the episode. That's why all this feels kind of like uncharted territories to us. We talked mostly about Armin and all the things he's doing. We just kind of enjoyed his company and hung out with him. And so this is kind of like our actual first review, our first deep dive into this episode, because last time we watched it and we're like, okay, cool. So what's up, Armin?
Right. Yeah. Well, and then Armin's really good at asking questions too. So he asked a lot of questions as well. So there was a lot of back and forth, but not really much talk about the episode, if any.
And we do love Armin and thank him for being our first major guest on a Deep Space Nine review. He's been so good to us. Anyway, I didn't want to derail the conversation, but that's something I should have mentioned at the top of the episode, that we kind of never reviewed this one. So this is a new one. What a treat.
Yeah. And it felt like I hadn't talked about this episode, and I guess we didn't talk about the episode itself. One thing I was going to say about Kira and what the Bajorans did with this, because they basically come up with a biological weapon that they were going to unleash on the Cardassians, right? And when you think about the level of extreme that they were going to go through to do that, and Kira being able to hunt down Dr. Cermak, so to find a way out of this, but it's very reminiscent, and this is, you couldn't know this at this point, 5 episodes into season 1. But now, having watched the show and now reviewing this and watching this, this is exactly what Section 31 does to the changelings.
Yeah.
They formulate a biological weapon that they're trying to take them out with. And, so it's almost, they recycle that storyline, that plot line later on, in season 6 and 7. So I think that just shows you how much that rings true to a tactic that would be taken by a group in order to gain the upper hand in the situation. So to me, this is it holds true. It's consistent with what the writers have been delivering us throughout the show, and I thought it was just amazing too, because when we did the review, I'm pretty sure it was prior to COVID-19 coming upon the world, right?
Yep.
So hearing about emergency quarantines, we probably never discussed these things.
We did not even talk about that for sure, because that was in 2019. We didn't even talk about it in this review, but that was kind of my big takeaway too. Yeah, I was like, why aren't they all wearing masks? What are you doing? You guys are walking around licking doorknobs. What's going on here? Like, you got a virus that's airborne. Everybody's like, hey, what can we do? It's a thing that happens to everybody, I guess.
Well, at that point, they were probably all infected anyway. So, except for maybe Odo, who doesn't have a respiratory system, so it probably wouldn't affect him the same way.
Yeah, but just the fact that they're talking about an airborne virus, that they're talking about quarantining. As a matter of fact, at some point or another, Bashir on the image of his computer screen had an actual virus kind of looking, JPEG.
With little balls and the spiky things.
Almost looking like the official logo for COVID. So I was thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, this is too close to home. And once again, just kudos to the writers. Ira was definitely a big part of this. You wrote the story. Just to be able to, this is, like you said, January 24th, 1993. Nobody was talking about quarantining. Nobody was doing deep dives into viruses and biological weapons. It wasn't a major thing. I'm sure it was a thing. It wasn't a major thing. And it wasn't as heavy in the front of our in our face as it is now, and something that's everybody now has some relative knowledge of, having experienced this pandemic that we went through.
And a lot of people that don't have any knowledge, that doesn't stop them either. Everybody became an armchair virologist by day 2. They're like, well, actually, bro, you don't know anything. What are you talking about? Well, no, but I heard that.
Right.
Who did you heard it from?
That would have been so funny if they were doing that, like on the station, where they're like, well, I heard if you drink red leaf tea that it makes the virus go. No, I heard that if you take a warm bath, not too hot, the virus doesn't like that.
Right.
That would be amazing.
Everybody became an expert, like you said. But I wanted to bring up, you mentioned about the Sisko, about Kira, and how she kind of goes off on her own handle, and she's like, no, I'm going to do this. And when she goes up to Sisko at the end of this, and she's like, oh no, I'm about to go see the dude. She says that she's not asking for permission. Just for the record, she's not saying, Captain, can I do this? Should I do this?
She's basically leaving him a Post-it note. She's letting him know so he doesn't worry.
Right. She's taking charge. And one thing that I noticed in the delivery of the lines, when Odo is there, because Odo's in the background when Kira comes in and she's like, oh, okay, I found the guy, about to go get him. I know where he is. And Sisko's like, trying to say, no, you can't do that. But I thought Odo gave a really great line, and he's like, better let her go, Sisko. She's all we've got. And he called him Sisko.
I caught the same thing, and I wanted to ask you about that. We're used to him calling him Commander.
Captain.
Or Captain
Commander,
later.
Yep.
Right.
I caught that too. I wonder what that's about. I wonder if when he changed, when that change happened, and he started calling him Commander.
Or did he call him Sisko in this moment because essentially everybody's about to die, and this whole chain of command illusion is about to be dissolved, because we're at a point where it's life or death right now for everybody, including
we're all equals here now.
Right. So I wonder if that was the reasoning behind the non-addressing as commander.
Hmm.
But you caught that too, though.
Definitely. It kind of jumps out at you when he goes, "Let her go, Sisko." You're like, "Hey, you watch your mouth, Odo."
Yeah. Sisko,
I was
what you calling
thinking he's
Sisko?
right.
But then I was thinking he's right. I'm like, what
he's-
other options do you have at this point exactly? You don't really,
Yeah.
especially when it really got serious for me when O'Brien got sick and they said he had 12 hours. And when they said, and then it made me think, well, then that means I only got like 24 hours, right? That's what I was thinking. So as soon as they said O'Brien's got 12 hours, I'm like, well, shit, I got it like 12 hours after O'Brien. So if he's only got 12 hours, Jake's got 24 hours. So that means, shit is really about to hit the fan, and Sisko doesn't have many options at this point, right? This is like, and the other thing I also thought of was like, how all the problems have to be solved in-house. Right now, you get sick in your house, you fall down, you break your leg. You don't try to patch it up in-house, right? If it's a small cut, yeah, you'll cut it and you put some, Neosporin or whatever and band-aid it up. But something that's serious, you got to go to the hospital for. So we go to the central plate. And then even for when you get to the hospital, they're like, oh, no, this requires a specialist and you need an open heart surgery. You need an open heart surgeon. And that person's over at another place. So when you seek medical attention, you literally are going around. You're at Johns Hopkins. You're here. You go to the cancer research place. You're here. You're there. You have to fly around. You have to meet people. And it made me think how in this situation at a space station in the middle of nowhere, I felt like, wow, there's nowhere else to go to, right?
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel like, oh, there's no like specialist to call. Like, oh, well, let's go call the virologist, the Dr. Fauci of the future. Like I was thinking, you know what I mean? I was thinking like,
I think Dr. Fauci will still be alive in a few hundred years.
But I was thinking, where is the central command for a situation like this, right? Where you would think Bashir would have resources at his disposal, where he's able to call the Starfleet headquarters for infectious diseases and say, da 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 da, this is what's happening, and they would come in maybe with a quarantine unit, So
That's a good point.
Yeah,
they're very standalone in that station.
Yes.
They're just kind of self-sustaining.
Yes.
Well, maybe when Bashir calls Deep Space Nine frontier medicine, then this is why he is accurate in that statement, because they are on the edge of space, on the front edge of the frontier, and they're basically on their own.
Speaking of on their own, we do have to take another quick break. But before we do that, we could not have done this on our own without the help of some friends called, well, all of you out there, of course, but also including Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay, the Grizzlies fan, Bill Victor Arukin, Titus Muller. I think he's a Kings fan, actually. I think I remember him posting about the Kings, Titus Muller.
Oh, interesting.
Darlena Marie Blender, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman on a post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil Akasaka. Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, my live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Jed Thompson, Steve Case, Joe Bugbuster, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Oaken. We should find out what flavor of Starburst they would all be, because Jason would be strawberry. He's like, I got strawberry. All right. We'll be right back,
Questions.
everybody. Stick around. We will be incorporating Mr. Aaron Eisenberg into this next segment of our free-for-all, and we will see you soon. Stick around. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule.